So how did I go on this journey of wanting to get a emulation device set up? It started when I was looking at companies like Anbernic and Retroid and Ion with their Odin 2 and stuff like that. And I was shopping around. I watched a bunch of Retro Game Core videos, and at the end of the day, I had just really gotten interested in the custom emulation scene and all of the devices and handhelds that are coming out for it. I've been an emulator, a person who does emulation, a thief, a pirate, a vigilante, if you will, since I was like 12. And so I very much enjoyed being a part of this community and all that kind of stuff. And I will always emulate games for the rest of my existence. And at the end of the day, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think the bigger antithesis of like why I always increase my use of emulation and encourage others to emulate is because I just feel like there are predatory companies, especially Nintendo, and you can go ahead and copyright strike me because haha, I don't make AdSense anyway, Nintendo, are being very predatory towards the market and just towards gamers in general in how they give away their old IPs and things like that, and just never really make it super available to play old games effectively. And that's partially to do with the secondhand market and how expensive other actual physical copies of games have gotten. And when we finally do get something from Nintendo on a way to play old games, it's hidden behind paywalls. It's also at random what kind of games you'll get. If you go into the Nintendo Switch store and the Nintendo Switch online and you go to any of their virtual consoles, they're all mishmashes of games that you may or may not be interested in. And for me, a lot of the Game Boy stuff, which is hidden behind an additional layer of paywall, is just not games that I'm super interested in right at this moment. Now, yes, Pokemon and things like that are coming to it later, but at the end of the day, I want to play the games how I want to play the games, and I want to play the games that I want to play right now. And unless I want to spend $200 on a Pokemon Emerald cartridge, and also find a Game Boy Advance somewhere in this universe, or God forbid, a DS Lite in usable condition, I'm gonna spend a lot more money than I would spend if I just bought an emulation device. Now, the other problem is Christmas is on the way, and I had limited funds to spend on myself because I was spending for other people, because you should buy people gifts on Christmas. That's kind of what you do for Christmas. So I was looking around and I remembered that I had my old Galaxy A14 5G, and I bought this solely because I broke my phone while I was in New York City over a trip that me and my wife took, and this thing was $100 at T-Mobile, and it's a pretty decent smartphone. It didn't do a lot of the things that I wanted to do, which is why I didn't stick with it long term. And so I just kind of kept it around as a backup phone. But this, on top of the Asus ROG Tenzin, allowed me to create my own personal emulation device. And I think that's a super easy and convenient way for a lot of people who might have extra hardware lying around to get into the space and to do something that they might otherwise just kind of not do or be too scared to do on their computer because viruses, which, you know, isn't really how emulation works anymore. There are actually some very safe places to get ROMs and things like that, or you could just pull carts, or there are ways to get them now. I understand why it's sketch for PC users. But now you can have things like this, because most of these emulation devices on the market are also running Android or some version of Linux anyway, so why not have your own little emulation device at home by buying a really cheap phone like this guy is and buying a controller? And at the end of the day, this does 90% of what you want it to do, and it looks beautiful while doing it. And again, this is a very budget smartphone, but it's able to run things like Game Boy, NES, Super NES, N64, and things of that generation with no real issue. I got up to PS1 with this guy without having really any issues. And so I just think at the end of the day, if you want to get into this industry and you want to get into gaming and have like a dedicated handheld, this is a smart way to go. Some recommendations that I would have: I obviously love this controller. The Asus ROG Tenzin is pretty great. I think one of the standout features about it is its layout, its clicky and tactile buttons, analog triggers. They say console-like joysticks. They're not Hall Effect, so that is kind of unfortunate because that is like the preferred joystick type of connectivity. but they don't have that. They say console grade. They feel like Xbox switches or Xbox sticks, if that makes any sense. The other big thing about it is it folds in half, so it makes it super easy for you to just slide your phone into the slot and then expand and pull, because this is adjustable to most smartphones. This is also like a 6-inch device. I think it's 6.2 or something like that. So this is a pretty big smartphone. It fits it just fine. You are not going to be able to fit things like iPads and things like that on there, but you should be able to do any normal iPhone, any Pixel, any Samsung device with ease. So most of the main phones out there. I also tried this with my LG G7 just because I thought the LG G7 would be better. I was wrong. And yeah, just test out with a couple of other devices, and you can get this super cheap. This was buy 5 on Amazon right now. So super cheap, super easy to afford it. And then you can just throw some games on an SD card and go on and get in there and get the job done. Oh my God, there's that scared the hell out of me. That's Fire Emblem Sacred Stones, and it's delightful. I've been playing that as of lately. It's one of my favorite games of all time. So I've been playing the Fire Emblem series and some Pokemon, and it's been glorious. But all that aside, I think it's extremely important to kind of recognize where you're at. And if you're like me and you didn't really want to full bore go into getting a dedicated handheld for emulation because you have your PC to do the bigger consoles like Wii, GameCube, PlayStation, Xbox 360, all that kind of stuff, and you just wanted something to play your favorite Game Boy childhood games, you just find an old smartphone. They're super cheap on Facebook Marketplace. You can get even like just cheap brand new ones at a place like T-Mobile, or just, Walmart. Go grab like an old cheap phone, and 9 times out of 10 they're going to be able to play retro games. And as long as they run Android, you can get things like the big guy that I recommend right now is Lemoroid, which is this little app guy right here. Which does pretty much every emulation core. For anybody who understands what RetroArch is, it's a way for you to just kind of get all of your emulators in one, kind of have a control scheme all set up to use on all different devices. It's a great way to put your game library all in one place. I have all of my consoles organized here. It's delightful. I use it a lot. It's a lot more simple than RetroArch, so a lot of people who do hate RetroArch tend to shit on it and say, hey, this is too complicated, that kind of thing. I would agree with them for the most part, but Lemoroid runs RetroArch kind of in the background and gives you a very simple UI to use. And then, I just also have YouTube and the Play Store and file management because I need that. And that's it. And that's really all you need. You can keep a super lightweight phone kind of sitting in here. The beautiful thing about the ROG Tenzin is it comes with little resizers, so you can fit it exactly to your phone so it doesn't squeak around as you're playing. And at the end of the day, you just get to play games. And I think that's the biggest piece of it. Find a way to play games and find a way to play them the way that you want to play them. That's super important, I think, with the way the industry is right now and the way that Nintendo is acting and other companies are starting to act. It's extremely important for you to go out there and preserve your games, whether you're buying physical cartridges or you're deciding to emulate and be a filthy pirate like the rest of us. That being said, I hope you guys enjoyed my little story time into why I decided to create my own little emulation device. If you want more of an in-depth of what I did, how I set mine up, specific Android settings that might be beneficial, let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll go through an actual honest to god breakdown of how I set it up. But there are plenty of people out there like Retro Game Core who do that kind of stuff already. If you haven't checked out their channel, I highly recommend that as well. I'll leave it linked in the description down below. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.